kill, burn! Maim, kill, burn!
Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of The Happy Heretic. Now, I've been spending the last couple of days painting up this happy little fellow right here, this Mephitic Blight Crawler. And one of the questions that I've gotten quite frequently, actually, is actually on a lot of the minis that I paint that I post to my social media, is how do I do the green on these guys? What paints am I using? What technique do I use? Am I using contrast paints? Now, anybody who's followed me for any length of time knows that I use oil paints on most of my minis for most of the things that I paint. I'd say probably 90% of my painting is done with oil paints, and this guy is no exception. I use pretty much the same type of technique that I've used on all of my Plague Marines, actually, and that I've used on my Nurgle Demons as well, the same type of thing. So I thought what I was going to do today is I would just go ahead and do a video where I take you through the process a little bit and show you a little bit about how I paint my stuff, and I'm going to show you using this happy fellow right here. You can't really see the detail too much on him because of the lighting, and because if I kind of hold it at an angle, you can. But I got this little Plague Marine right here to paint. He's been undercoated with Wraithbone spray, which is the first step. So I will go ahead and just take you through how I paint this guy up and how I get this nasty looking green color on all of my Nurgle guys. So I got my supplies set up here. Supplies I use for oil painting, very simple. First and foremost, oil paints. This is from a set done by Meaden Oil Paints. I'll put a link to the set on Amazon in the description below if you want to take a look at that. But basically, this set came with a whole bunch of different colors. I think it was like 16 different colors in these 12 milliliter tubes. I went ahead and pre-thinned them and transferred them into these dropper bottles. I'll talk about thinning in just a second. But these oil paints are what I've been using primarily. They've served me well. They've actually been pretty decent. They can get a little chalky sometimes, and a lot of them are pigment heavy, so doing things like thinning them down for washes and things like that can be a little tricky sometimes, but they work out pretty well. So just get a little bit of this olive green color right here and put it into my palette. I've got just a little aluminum palette. You want something that's non-porous when you do this. And then I've got my odorless mineral spirits here. I've got 2 jars with mineral spirits. I got 1 jar for cleaning, that's the big glass jar right here. And I got a little baby food jar with some mineral spirits in there for thinning the paints. You want to thin oil paints because they're going to be very, very thick. They're going to be almost like toothpaste is the consistency a lot of times. So if you use that, you can use it straight from the tube like that, but it's going to take a long time to dry. I mean, we're talking a couple of days, maybe more, if you just use them straight from the tube. So if you thin them, that's gonna, with just some odorless mineral spirits. Some people might use artist white spirits, and there's different thinning mediums that can give you different effects as well, like more matte effects or more of a glossy effect. They can speed the drying time, slow the drying time. A whole bunch of stuff out there, but odorless mineral spirits, if you want to get started with oil painting, good way to go. I got a video kind of explaining why I use odorless mineral spirits and the difference between that and artist white spirits. I'll link that in the description below as well if you want to take a look at that. So I go ahead and just put a couple of drops in there and just kind of thin it out. Now I've got 3 brushes here. First brush is just an old nasty army painter brush. And this brush I use purely for mixing oil paints. And I get it almost kind of like to the consistency of an acrylic paint. So this will actually do nicely. This kind of consistency is pretty good. So we'll just clean this off. And then what I've got right here is I've got two more brushes. I've got a brush that I'm going to use to actually paint the paint on, or slap the paint on the Mini. And then I got another brush that I'm going to use to go ahead and smooth the paint out. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, but I'll go ahead and get this all set up here. Just get some paint on the brush. And paper towel to just wipe away any of the excess. Don't want too much on there, but really doesn't matter a whole lot. And I just start slapping paint on the Mini. And this is literally all I'm doing right now, just slapping paint on him. I'll worry about whether or not it looks like crap later, and you can probably tell just a little bit that it does kind of look like crap at this stage in the game. That's okay. That's okay. It'll look better when we smooth it out. So I'll just go ahead and keep slapping that on there. Not really worrying too much about being very neat, and the reason for that is because I can wipe away any of my mistakes later. And this is just the first coat anyway, first color that I'm putting down. So, but yeah, I can wipe away if I make a mistake, if I get paint where I'm not supposed to. You can kind of see on his chainmail skirt a little bit that I'm getting some paint there, some green paint, and quite frankly, I don't really want green paint there in that spot. But that's okay because I can take some Artist White Spirits or Odorless Mineral Spirits, whatever you're using, and I can use that later on to just wipe away paint from anywhere I don't want it. I mean, when I say wipe away paint, I mean literally wipe away paint. I've got a video on how to fix your oil painting mistakes that I did a while back. I will go ahead and link that in the description of this video. But that lets you see literally how easy it is to fix any mistakes that you make. I mean, I screwed up an entire Mini in that video, and I literally used Artist White Spirits to wipe away the entire paint job off of that Mini and start over from scratch. So, White Spirits, oil paints, that's actually one of the big advantages to oil painting. Yeah, there's some disadvantages to oil painting. It takes a long time to dry in a lot of cases. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But the big advantage is, it's very forgiving. It's a very forgiving medium. You don't have to worry too much about making mistakes that you can't fix very easily. With acrylic paints dry quick. So if you make a mistake with acrylic paints, yeah, you can fix it, but it takes a lot more work, especially if you're not quick enough. I mean, I've wiped away acrylic paints just with a finger or a wet brush or something like that before. But if you're not quick with that, it ends up being a lot. It ends up being a lot harder to fix in a lot of cases. And sometimes, if you screw up enough with acrylics, you gotta, at that point, you're soaking it in a bath of simple green for like 24 hours, or LA is Totally Awesome, or whatever your preferred stripping medium is, and you're going back to the drawing board at that point. So, but oil paints, very, very, very forgiving. It's very, very easy to fix any mistakes that you make, so you don't have to worry about screwing things up as much, and it just gives you a lot of freedom for experimenting and things like that. In fact, a lot of my paint jobs that I've done with my oil paints have come about as a result of experimenting with them and just playing around and seeing, you know, what works, what doesn't, and saying to myself, okay, what happens if I do this? And that's half the fun of oil paints. It really is. Is just getting in there, slapping it on, playing around. Now you might notice some of you who have watched some other oil painting videos like Vince Venturella and things like that might be like, well, that's not how they do it. That's not how Vince V does it, or anything like that. They see what Vince Venturella does is he kind of puts colors next to each other and blends them together. And that's what a lot of, John Enos does that as well. A lot of different painters do that with oil paints as well. And the reason for that is because it's very, very easy to blend oil paints. Very, very easy. You got that long drying time, so you can do that really easily with oil paints. And I've done that before. So, I'm no stranger to working with oil paints in that way. I've done it. I like this way better. This way gives me better results. I use the oil paints kind of like almost as an acrylic, really. But yeah. So just putting oil on the other parts and pieces. There's people starting to wake up in the house a little bit, so if you hear weird noises, doors slamming, dogs barking, that sort of thing, that's why. In fact, let me go ahead and let one of my dogs in. I'm coming outside. Oh, and there they go. There they go. Getting raw unfiltered here. Raw unfiltered happy heretic. Alright, okay. That's good enough. That's good. I like that. It looks good. Can't really see a whole lot because I've got this kind of far away. My eyes aren't what they used to be, but that's okay. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my smoothing brush. You want just kind of like a soft old brush for this. The key with this brush is you keep it dry as you possibly can. This brush is not actually going to go into the mineral spirits or anything like that. I don't want that. I want to use this to kind of smooth things out. And what this does, if you can see, let me see if I can get it closer to the camera. But what this does is removes the excess oil paints. And kind of leaves oil in the recesses of the mini, so it gives a little bit of shading, and it also pulls it away from the raised areas, so it gives it some highlights as well, some ready-made highlights. And you can do this, you can play around with this as much as you want. You really can. I can take away as much or as little as I need. I can add more back in if I want. But this kind of, like I said, smooths everything out. Makes it stop looking like ass. Which, I'll be honest, when you first put oil paints on it, yeah, it looks like ass a lot of times. Again, dropping things. Forgot to get some paint in one tiny little teensy corner. This guy. There we go. That should do it. Yeah, this just kind of moves the paint around, creates some highlights. Makes it look pretty. There we go. I'll do the same thing on his arm. we go. Let me kind of move that a little bit closer so you can see it a little bit better. See the result of it just a little bit. Got another dog running around. I'm gonna get chicken with his head cut off. And do the backpack. Move the paint back in little cracks and crevices that I missed. Around a bit. And that's it. This guy, his base coat is pretty much done at this point. If I wanted to, I could go back and I could kind of blend in some other colors for some other highlights. Like I said, oil paints have a very, very long working time. This guy is nowhere near dry. This guy I'm going to leave to dry probably overnight. Usually, I can get oil paints drying a little bit quicker than that, in a couple of hours. Like if I'm painting this guy in the morning, he's probably going to be dry enough by the evening that I can, go ahead and start on the next couple of steps here. But I'm going to let him dry overnight just to make sure that he's nice and he's nice and ready for the next couple of steps. But if I wanted to, I could take some yellow and kind of like feather in some yellow on the highlights right there. I'm not going to, just because this video is running a little bit long, and I kind of tend to save that for the bigger minis, like my Blight Crawler right here, or my brand new, freshly painted Lord of Virulence right here as well. But yeah, no, he's more or less done. He's got a nice nasty green color that once I do the next steps, it's going to blend in really nicely with the rest of the Plague Marines that I've gone and painted. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do with this guy next, once he does dry, I'm going to give him a nice washing of Agrax with shade to kind of help shade things further, kind of bring out some more of the details, get him a little bit grimy and things like that. I also do the metal bits and things like that. And oh, I forgot, almost forgot. I wanted to show you guys what happens if you make a mistake on oil paints. Get another brush here. Okay. So before I end things here, I gotta show you guys what happens if you make a mistake. So, some pure, undiluted white spirits. So you notice, if you can see, I know the camera's kind of crappy and it's not wanting to focus very well, but if you can see, like right here on the tentacle, I got a little bit of green on there. On the tabard, there's a little bit of green as well, more green on the tentacle, and things like that, and especially on like the chainmail and the belt and things like that, I got some green on those places as well. I don't necessarily want green there. It doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of difference, because what I can do later on, once this dries, I can just cover it up with Wraithbone acrylic paint. And yes, you can put acrylics on top of oil paints. I'll explain that in a later video. But if I want to get rid of this stuff now, what I can do when it's wet, take just a little bit of pure white spirits. Just kind of wipe that away. And I can use some paper, a little bit of paper towel. Get rid of that as well. I don't want to go too deep and involved with this because the white spirits, the mineral spirits, will run into the cracks and crevices of the mini, and I have ruined paint jobs before by going a little too gung-ho with this cleanup, but I'll just go ahead and just wipe it away. You can see most of the oil paint at this point is gone off of those areas that I didn't want it. You can see there's a little bit of a green tint left behind. And depending on the type of oil paint you use, there may be a little bit of a tint left behind on whatever you clean up, but that's okay. That's okay. You can fix that later. You can cover that up with acrylics or whatever. Now, the one thing I will say is you do kind of want to be careful if you're using oil paints just on a straight base coat. You do kind of want to be careful a little bit with the amount of cleaning that you do. Because I have had it where I've scrubbed a little too hard to get paint off of the Mini, and I've scrubbed down to bare plastic before. The white spirits, they don't tend to hurt acrylic base coats too much, but just be aware if you do scrub a little too hard to clean up a mistake, you probably are going to get down to the plastic on the base coat. So you just kind of want to watch that, and it'll be very obvious when you start getting that far. You'll start to see that showing up. So yeah, this guy's pretty much done. Next step, like I said, is going to be an Agrax wash, and then before that, of course, I'll do all the little metal bits, and I'll do some of the other bits here, like the skin for the tongue and the tentacles and things like that. I'll do all those in oil paints as well, and just kind of wash all of that. And then it's going to come to the fun part, the thing that I do on all of my Nurgle Minis, which is weathering using oil paints, and I will do that in another video because that is probably the most fun and most satisfying step. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave this video right here because I know it's gotten a little bit long, but let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. If you liked what you saw, leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Both of those things help me out quite a bit, and I'm looking to grow this channel as much as I possibly can, up to 41 subscribers at the time of this filming. So thank you everybody, and I hope you're enjoying my content, and I will see you all next time.